Conversation finished, Akachi was led back to his cell. No sooner had the iron door closed than Kobayashi hurried over.
Akachi! Are you alright? What did he want with you?
Akachi relayed to Kobayashi his conversation with Porlock.
So we were just being used by those two? We had no way of knowing, but I can't believe the sum of all our work was to aid criminals.
Kobayashi, I understand how you must feel, but this ship is already at sea. Given our current situation, we cannot afford to dwell on the past. We must focus our efforts on finding a way to put a stop to what is going on right now.
Dwelling on the past? Is that all you see it as? Do you have any idea what we've done? Because of the work we have done, people have died, murdered by these people, and we were never the wiser.
I understand that perfectly well.
Do you? Because that isn't the impression I'm getting.
Kobayashi grabbed Akachi, his fingers tight around his friend's shoulders.
We were so caught up in the work we were given, and proving ourselves as investigators, that we completely overlooked crimes we might have prevented. We can't simply brush that aside.
Kobayashi, can you still your tongue for a moment? You are not the only one here angry about what has happened.
And why did you wave the white flag to Porlock so quickly anyway? If the two of us had fought together...
If we had continued to fight, those children would have been in grave danger. Surely you realize that.
Even so, you still gave up far too easily. Just dropped your katana to the deck without so much as a moment's hesitation.
Dang, Kobayashi actually just punched him. Kobayashi, he understands, but he's just like, getting caught up in this right now is not going to help anything. We need to focus on getting out of here, and then we can feel sorry for ourselves. Suddenly, Kobayashi lashed out, striking Akachi. Akachi took the punch in stride, returning to his friend only a piercing glare.
I didn't cast it away because I wanted to.
Then why did you? When you relinquished your sword, you threw away your pride with it. No matter how great the adversity, that's the one thing you have ever refused to let go of.
I'll not sit here and listen to this.
Oh, it got him angry.
You have no right to lecture me with such arrogance.
Gah!
This time it was Akachi who lashed out to strike Kobayashi, his fist driving into his friend's cheek. But even as Kobayashi reeled from the punch, Akachi grabbed him by the shoulders.
You know nothing of how I feel, so don't act as though you do.
How could I possibly know? You're the one who prides himself on keeping a cool demeanor, precisely because it renders others unable to tell how you truly feel.
Kobayashi wound back his fist, preparing to strike Akachi a second time. Boys, enough fisticuffs, please.
Have you any idea how hard it is being the assistant to a stiff-necked, emotionally impervious pain in the arse who refuses to vent even the most mundane among his woes? Who simply lets his stress and worry build up inside him like a blight?
Akachi continued to glare at him with the same piercing stare, clenching his fist tightly.
If being my assistant is such an onerous duty, why don't you simply quit?
Life would be far simpler if I could simply be quit of you, idiot!
Don't you call me an idiot!
You tell everyone not to speak of your master, yet you continue to obsess over him. Pull yourself together already!
You're the one who ought to pull himself together.
Kobayashi grasped Akachi by the collar, slamming him into the wall.
I'm not scared of you when you're unarmed. Take away that katana and all you are is a hard-headed half-wit.
Are you spoiling for a fight, Kobayashi?
And what if I am? Bring it on, I say!
Their punch-punctuated argument escalated into a full-on fight, as the two exchanged heated blows again and again, until both fell to the ground exhausted. Do you feel better? Now can you talk about your feelings without hitting each other? Like real men? Oh, he's coming in with the Kenchan. He feels bad.
Ouch. Listen, Kenchan.
Stop calling me Kenchan.
Fine, Akachi. I don't think, given our current situation, it's a good time for us to be fighting like this.
Says the one who started it.
I may have lit the match, but you were all too happy to add the kindling. At any other time, you would have simply brushed it off or ignored me.
It would be incredibly immature of me to allow myself to be goaded into a fight by the taunting and jeering of one younger than me.
Says the one who did just that.
Kobayashi shot Akachi a dissatisfied glare.
Besides, I never had time or reason to quarrel with you anyway.
True enough. When we did fight, we were always on the same side, you and I. All those times I was bullied, you always used to rush to my aid without so much as a second thought.
If you had simply been picking fights, I would have left you to reap your just deserts. But you were always standing up for those smaller than yourself.
I'm sorry, Akachi.
Akachi tilted his head, puzzled at Kobayashi's impromptu apology.
Are you apologizing for turning on me earlier?
No, it's not. I've no intention of apologizing for that. I was just thinking, perhaps if I had backed you up against those nobles back then, you wouldn't have landed in the trouble you did.
Even if you had come to my defense, all you would have accomplished is giving them 2 targets rather than 1. If anything, I'm relieved that I was able to shoulder the whole of the burden alone.
Look, Kenchan.
How many times must I tell you not to call me?
Please, just drop the whole cool, unflinching loner act. I know you truly respected your master from the bottom of your heart. He represented everything you sought to be. You tell me that it was for the best that you ended up being driven out, as though you're trying to convince yourself, but I think being cast out has made you terribly lonely.
That's not...
Akachi hesitated in his response, and Kobayashi simply continued to speak.
I've been by your side this entire time. I have helped you, supported your endeavors, and in all that time I've yet to see anyone as hard-headed as you. Or as dependable. But whenever I see you trying to act as though you aren't suffering when I know you are, pouring yourself into training as if that will dispel all your hurts, it's painful for me to watch, too. Still, now that I've knocked you off your feet, that means this bout goes to me, doesn't it? And that means you've got to listen to what I...
What are you going on about? You're sprawled out on the ground no less than I. Fighting to a draw does not a victory make. And besides that, I have never once suffered in the way you described.
Huh. The worst part about the whole matter is that you're not even conscious of what you're doing. It'd be far better for you if you were simply honest and open with your feelings, like you were that time you hugged Emily. Akachi?
Akachi, however, had fallen completely silent, and Kobayashi's words fell upon unhearing ears. Aw, we didn't really resolve it yet. Oh no, boys, please make up.
You're cuter and more sprightly than I was expecting. A pleasure to make your acquaintance, young lady.
I endeavored to move as far as possible from the man who had introduced himself as Porlock. He leaned against the bars of my cage, staring in at me. His voice was cheerful, and a grin played at the corners of his lips, but his eyes remained unimpassioned, cold as ice. You were supposed to have been sentenced to lifetime imprisonment.
You're not wrong. I was. But because I'm such a skilled gent, you see, I was set free by my old boss. I was beginning to tire of life in a cold, cramped cell, as you might imagine, so I decided to take him up on his offer. Come to think of it, you're the head of House Whiteley, aren't you?
What of it?
Oh, nothing much. I just thought it must be a rough time having your parents killed. Though whether the Whiteley family carries on or fizzles out is none of my concern. I don't care to go out of my way just to butter up the organization's top brass. Still, as a noble, it can't be fun rotting in a cell like this.
It's actually quite comfortable now that I've become used to it. Unaware of what thoughts might be simmering behind his unfeeling eyes, I couldn't help but feel a certain nervousness being near him.
Funny thing, I'm rather fond for those who put on a front equal parts bravery and sarcasm. It makes it that much more fun when they start being honest. Still, I can't deny that I do feel a twinge of regret about locking you up in here.
Just me? Or do you refer to all those other children you have locked up?
Unlike them, you're pretty, so you're a special case. Believe it or not, at this point I myself am sick of dealing with children. They're ceaseless fonts of noise unless you put them to sleep or administer drugs. The upside, of course, is that it's far easier to mold them into the image you would have them take than it is with adults. The noise and the ease with which they can be rendered useless are still a bit of a problem, though. Thankfully, I've brought along plenty of spares.
I couldn't help but shudder at the way he spoke so casually about his entire operation. Spares? How can you even say such a dreadful thing?
I'll tell you what. If you make yourself useful, I'll let you out of here. How does that sound?
I refuse to cooperate.
Of course you won't. It was never my expectation that you would. Not willingly, at any rate. But what if I were to tell you that you'll be obeying me whether or not you will it?
No, I will not obey you, no matter what. I have no intention of doing the bidding of a man who treats children as some disposable resource. I'd rather rot in this cage to the end of my days if the alternative is abetting a criminal.
My, that's quite the confident statement for someone on the less fortunate side of iron bars. Do you truly think you'll be able to engineer some miraculous escape? Well, it's not the first time today I've extended a kind offer only to be spurned, but your rejection was even icier than the last. It seems that young samurai isn't the only one who fails to understand the position they're in.
Samurai?
I find the feelings of others to be unreliable at the best of times, but I do take a keen interest in their capabilities. I could kill you here and now and be done with it, but in deciding that your services may be of worth to me, I'm extending to you the chance to live. I'd count it a considerable kindness, wouldn't you?
Not in the least. That's no way to live. You're a man who will sacrifice others without a second thought, even children, for your own profit.
What sacrifice? They were destined to be worked to death in the workhouses anyway. Serving me is a far more meaningful use of what life they have. Besides, I cannot say I find the words of a girl who has lived her life being waited on hand and foot particularly stirring. But here, I have a question for you, little miss. You wouldn't happen to recognize this sword, would you?
That's Akachi's. I was stunned to see Akachi's precious katana in Porlock's possession. Akachi. He couldn't have been captured, could he? My heart began to race. I clenched my fists, palms moist. Steadfastly I avoided Porlock's gaze that he might not detect how shaken I was. I need to calm myself. If he should realize that Akachi came here to rescue me, he would surely use that against him. And that is the one thing I want him to do least of all. I can't say it looks familiar, no. I did my utmost to keep my voice steady as I spoke.
Really? I thought it might belong to an acquaintance of yours, perhaps.
I've never seen it before.
Shame. I had hoped you might recognize the blade, but as you seem not to, it is of little interest to me. I'm more a dabbler in fencing. Were it a proper saber, I would have at least had a personal use for it. However, I am no dealer in antiques, nor even a collector, and what I have no use for, I would just as well cast away.
Freaking knew you were gonna throw it out to sea. Oh. What?
Fortunately, it's never easier to be rid of rubbish than when out at sea. I suppose I'll just throw it overboard when I'm on the deck.
Don't! Porlock made as though to leave, katana in hand, but before I realized it, I had called out after him.
Don't? Were you not raised to speak more politely when making requests of your elders?
Please, just don't throw it away. Please.
Ah, yes. Nothing is quite so refreshing as a little honesty. It makes me want to tease you all the more. Still, you surely care greatly for your friends, don't you? Covering for them even when it means betraying your own principles. Unfortunately, there's nothing I despise more than a bleeding heart, willing to go to any length to aid others. The very sight of it galls me.
No! With a sudden motion, he violently pitched the katana into the cage holding the children. It clattered loudly against the floor, bouncing several times before it slid to a stop. The noise seemed so loud in that quiet place, it froze me to the spot.
The next time you refuse my invitation, you'll come to dearly regret it. Perhaps. But this I will say. If that Easterner is someone important to you, I suggest you think carefully about your position here.
A serpentine smile on his satisfied face, Porlock left without another word. As soon as he had left, I fell to my knees. Akachi's katana was far out of reach. And yet... Even knowing the futility of my struggle, I stretched my arm as far as I was able through the bars. I pressed with all the force I could muster, squeezing my upper arm through so narrow a gap, I felt a tightening pain in my shoulder. Still, I could not help but try. Can't quite reach. The frustration was nigh unbearable. It's right there before me. It's such an important possession to him. Can I not even protect this one small thing? I cannot possibly heed Porlock's demands. But if something were to happen to Akachi and Kobayashi, I had tried to summon forth as much courage as I could in the face of his taunting, but ultimately I had ended up allowing myself to be rattled and given him exactly what he had wanted. This isn't the time to be losing heart. The two of them are here on this same ship. I'm not alone here. As if to beat back the worry and loneliness that threatened to overwhelm me, I clenched my fists and pushed, trying to earn even one more inch of reach through the bars that held me prisoner. I believe in you, girl. Meanwhile, elsewhere aboard the ship, Akachi, confined within a cage of his own along with Kobayashi, stared down at his left hand. I keep waiting for Pendleton to show up. I feel like he's on the ship somewhere and he's just waiting for his opportune moment. I'm calling it now.
Are you feeling restless, Akachi?
No, I wouldn't say it's that.
You're worried about Emily, aren't...
Kobayashi!
What is it? Don't even think of pretending that...
Just hush. Someone is coming.
Hearing at last the slowly approaching footsteps, Kobayashi turned his attention cautiously in that direction. Don't tell everyone that I love her. The footfalls stopped in front of their cell. Pendleton, is it you? Did I call you just in time?
I have a matter in which I would like to employ 2 detectives.
Despite his proximity, the man stood in the shadows, rendering the features of his face indistinguishable.
My request is that you put a stop to the human trafficking operation being run by Porlock and his men.
Just who are you?
That I cannot reveal. Know, however, that I am counting on you.
Ah!
As the man spoke, he tossed something between the bars of their cage. Kobayashi was quick to snatch it up. Yes! It's Pendleton!
This is the rest of my 7 tools! I could have sworn I left them at Emily's house.
His purpose seemingly fulfilled, the mysterious visitor turned and walked away, the sound of his footsteps growing more distant.
Hey, wait, you! What do you suppose that was all about?
It would seem we have been given a job to complete.
Yes, but by whom? And for what purpose?
I wish I knew. It may be possible that...
Have you worked it out already?
No, but it seems plain he gave us those that we might free ourselves to do as he bid us.
Akachi glanced at Kobayashi's tools, selecting a utility knife from among them. He slid the knife into the lock, then with a sharp twist of his wrist, turned the blade, destroying its mechanism from within.
Regardless of whether we take up his request, there is no reason for us to stay prisoners here.
Wait, Akachi.
Kobayashi?
Akachi showed no hesitation to leave the cage, but Kobayashi placed his hand firmly on Akachi's shoulder, forcing him to pause.
All right, Akachi. I want you to really listen to what I'm going to say. I'll not deny you're strong, but you're only able to bring your true strength to bear when you fight at your full potential unhindered. When a situation necessitates you fight while safeguarding someone, or fight while taking a hostage's safety into account, your kind spirit leads you to ever prioritize them above your own self. In our present situation, if you fight with such things holding you back, you won't be able to win.
I see.
You just focus on taking down Porlock and his men. Put all else from your mind. Leave protecting Emily and the children to me. I swear I'll not fail you in this.
To fight while keeping another from harm is no easy task.
I know it, and better than most. I've been by your side every step of the way, haven't I?
I couldn't possibly leave such a responsibility to you unaided.
Damn. Have a little faith. I'm your assistant. Would it hurt to trust me with something important every now and again? If after all this time you really can't put your trust in me, I really will quit.
Well, I can't be having that. After all, I may very well be the sole individual on land or sea capable of handling a troublemaker like you.
Huh! I could say the same of you.
The two of them turned to each other with a nod, both seeming to suppress a smile. Then, as if sensing each other's thoughts, the two strode forth from the cell together.
Now, what are you intending to do about a weapon, Akachi? There was a spare slingshot in the tools I was given earlier, so I'll be fine, but you'll need something too.
Akachi surveyed the environs carefully, scanning the room until his gaze landed on something propped up in the corner.
Wait, you can't seriously be...
Yes, this should do nicely.
But that's for boats!
I'm primarily interested in its effectiveness, less so whether it looks strange in my hands. This time, Kobayashi, I will work to get their attention. So, take care of her for me.
Got it!
Their paths diverged there. Akachi to subdue Porlock and his henchmen, and Kobayashi to save Emily and the children. No sooner had they split than Akachi came upon several guards, whom he began to dispatch one by one the second they entered his line of sight.
Gah! Damn it! How'd he get out?
Hurry and catch him! He's only got an oar, for God's sake!
But Dehar, he's too fast. We can't keep up with it.
If you're not interested in fighting me, please stand aside.
Gah!
You're in my way.
Drawn by the commotion, more of Porlock's men began to appear on the scene, but none proved agile enough to match Akachi's speed and ferocity, and one after another they fell before him.
Gah! Damn you!
The last left standing, surrounded by his fallen compatriots, Dehar began to back away.
Then, it seems I've no choice.
He slid his hand into his jacket.
I'm sorry, but
Gah!
Before he was able to move, Akachi brought the oar hard into his stomach, knocking the wind from him.
you'll be showing me the way.
Go, Akachi. Dehar's arm in a vice-like grip, Akachi finally ascended to the ship's deck.
Dear me. The sea finally tires of its restlessness. The moon peeks out from behind the clouds at last, and you decide to launch a one-man mutiny, Samurai-kun. Have the Japanese no love for the moon?
Don't be daft. Of course we do.
Oh!
A swift, well-placed strike from Akachi's oar sent Dehar sprawling to the ground unconscious. Porlock looked on with what seemed to be a sense of great amusement, glass of port wine cradled between his fingers.
The light of the moon is sacred, a mirror that illuminates the night's darkness. From the earliest recorded eras, it has inspired the stories, songs, and Tonka poetry of my people. Some even enjoy Mid-Autumn's harvest moon from their boats, allowing them to take in not just the moon hanging in the sky, but reflected in the water below.
That sounds like quite the luxurious outing. Anyhow...
Porlock drained the rest of his glass in a single gulp, and with a sweep of his hand threw the glass out into the black expanse of the ocean. That was a weird sound effect for that.
How about we have ourselves a little fun, Samurai-kun? Truth be told, I was beginning to grow rather bored. Just remember, no hard feelings if I end up skewering you through the heart, though. I take my play no less seriously than my work.
Porlock took hold of his saber, propped up against the railing. With an almost childlike smile, he brandished the weapon, pointing its tip straight toward Akachi's heart.
I accept your challenge. I too believe it folly to hold back when the gravity of a battle demands otherwise.
Akachi raised his makeshift weapon at Porlock.
The gravity, eh? A bit hard to take you seriously swinging that oar around, though. What do you intend to do? Club me to death?
This is more than enough to lay out a callow cur like you.
Quite the boast. I wouldn't recommend it were I in your shoes. It'll be that much more difficult to make excuses when you find yourself on the back foot. You're not the only captive of mine determined to put on a strong front, though. I wish you could have seen that young lady earlier trying her hardest to act tough.
At Porlock's provocations, Akachi remained silent, clenching his oar all the more tightly.
Such a performance she gave, trying to pretend as though she knew nothing of you and your friend. But the second I made as though I was planning to throw that sword of yours away, what a panic she raised! Sweet-hearted girls are such fun to tease. Simply the best, don't you think? It almost makes one wish to keep them around like a pet.
Silence! I'll not stand here listening to your mockery a moment more.
Whoa! Dang, this gives me such Hakuoki vibes. Yes! Oh, I love it. Spurred to action, Akachi took the initiative. With incredible speed, he stepped forward, swinging his oar upward at Porlock's throat. Without the time to evade, Porlock had no choice but to block the strike with his saber. The curved blade bit into the handle of the wooden oar, remaining lodged there momentarily.
So, you ended up enchanted by a Western girl, did you? Were you that desperate for even a little drop of kindness in a foreign land? You ought not work yourself into a frenzy, though. No woman of any race would ever fall for a man who makes a fool of himself, and none ever will!
I don't need advice from you.
Oh, how perfectly mundane. I had hoped you a more interesting man than the sort who would be ruled by fleeting passions. But, before we continue, am I correct in assuming you no longer have any intention of accepting my offer to join me?
I never had any intention of doing so from the beginning.
Well and good, then. That means I can run you through with nary a regret.
The edge of Porlock's saber shaved away at Akachi's oar, flitting closer with each pass. Akachi stepped back, widening the distance between them.
With a weapon like that, I can't imagine how you'll be able to deal me a fatal blow. Such a shame. I'm sure you would have been a far more formidable opponent if you had your own blade.
Just you wait till my girl gets on deck and throws it to him.
I assure you, your concerns are entirely without merit.
Oh ho! Then maybe I needn't hold back against you after all.
With every attack and defense, with each strike and parry, Porlock's blade chipped away at his oar, reducing its reach little by little with every pass.
What's this now? Your weapon's looking a mite on the shorter side. Do you really think you can reach me like that?
Damn!
Finally accepting that his weapon had been whittled away to near uselessness, Akachi threw the hacked wooden haft away.
And now you relinquish your only weapon? Surely you must have thrown away this battle with it. And your life as well.
Unfortunately for you, I have never once thrown a battle, and I have no intention of laying down my life here. However, I have not engaged in unarmed combat since I was instructed in it by my master before I was banished.
No matter. As unseemly as it is to say to an unarmed man, I haven't felt such vigor in ages. I must insist you keep me company for a little longer. Until your death at the least.
I'm glad to have refused that wine. The reek of that drug isn't one I think I shall ever forget.
Akachi frowned at the scented crystal that hung in the salty air.
Ha 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 ha! It's been far too long since my whole body shivered with excitement like this. Fighting a battle to the death is so much more stimulating than simply playing spectator to one. There's amusement in making my pawns run hither and thither, doing my work for me, but there are still thrills to be had taking the field myself too.
A look of overwhelming bliss scrawled across his features. Porlock stabbed his blade toward Akachi once more.
The offensive stances of Western styles are quite difficult to read. I won't be able to fight unarmed with the skill Holmes has exhibited, but...
Akachi focused the whole of his attention on the trajectory of the saber as it lanced toward him. What's going on out there? It seems to have gotten much noisier all of a sudden. Just as I grabbed the iron bars and pulled myself to my feet.
You damned kid! Do you really think you can beat me with those stupid toys? Don't you dare make fun of my partners! They've seen me through thick and thin! Gah!
I saw the guard nearest my cage let out a scream and fall to the ground. And no sooner had he hit the floor than I saw a blessedly familiar face.
Emily! I've come to get you out of here!
Kobayashi! He came running to my cell, slingshot in hand. You're all right! Thank goodness.
Step away from the door a moment, would you? I'll have you out in 2 shakes.
Kobayashi plucked a utility knife from his kit, jamming it into the keyhole and giving it a twist. Moments later, the door swung open and I was free.
That's how it's done. Now to spring the kids from their... Huh? Emily?
As Kobayashi talked, I had bounded from my cell, scurrying to pick up Akachi's katana from where it lay on the floor. Although it was not my first time handling the Eastern blade, my worry for its owner seemed to imbue the weapon with a greater weight just as before.
Is that Akachi's katana?
Kobayashi! Where is Akachi?
He's alright. Or at least he was when we split up. He went to deal with Porlock's minions and then the man himself.
I need to get this to him! Before I had even realized, I was dashing toward the door.
Stop, Emily! If you go where they're fighting now...
I'm sorry, Kobayashi! I shook off his petitions and flew from the room into the corridor beyond. I'm sorry, Kobayashi, but I must get Akachi's katana to him without delay. I know he'll have need of it. I ran and ran, as fast as my legs would carry me, past the legions of Porlock's minions who lay sprawled unconscious on the floor. With each step, I clutched Akachi's katana more tightly in my arms. Finally, I found myself on the ship's deck, and there, before my eyes, the two were locked in combat. Akachi! I had arrived just in time to see Akachi, covered in cuts, stop Porlock's saber with a bare-handed grasp. Oh no, not this again!
You've got quite the reserve of stamina, Samurai-kun.
It's more likely that your own has been greatly lessened by that drug.
Go!
Akachi shifted his weight, driving his elbow into the pit of Porlock's stomach. Porlock reeled visibly from the impact, his breaths coming rough and ragged. Akachi too stepped back several paces and fell to his knees. Akachi! I shouted as loud as I was able, hoping my voice would reach him.
How?
Yes, that's it. More! Give me more! Fill me with delight!
Porlock had staggered to his feet and advanced on Akachi once more, saber in hand.
Emily! My katana!
Right! Please protect him! I threw the katana toward him, sending a heartfelt prayer along with it. I can't believe he called you by your first name, too. This is so great. Even as it sailed through the air, the tip of Porlock's saber bore down on Akachi like a savage fang. Akachi's own attention was divided as he split his focus between catching his own weapon and the approach of Porlock's blade. Please! Just as the sheath of Akachi's katana landed with a slap in his palm, Porlock struck with a murderous thrust. The strikes happened in an instant, too quickly to register at a glance. An unbroken silence reigned for what felt like an eternity. So raptly was my attention focused on the scene before me that I very nearly forgot to breathe.
Samurai-kun. What is that Eastern phrase again? The mercies of a samurai.
I'm familiar with the phrase, but this is not that. I will not kill, nor will I harm any more than I must. That is my way.
The spine of the blade in Akachi's hand glimmered aloft, touched by the rays of the moon. That lesser light shone brilliantly against the dark of sea and sky, illuminating the graceful curve of Akachi's blade.
Also, to be clear, I am no warrior, nor a samurai. I am simply a Japanese detective.
Huh. The mercies of a detective, then. That doesn't sound right. Can't say I get any of that rubbish at all. Compassion, kindness, mercy. I don't understand them at all. I don't understand a word of it, Sir Detective.
His saber clattered to the deck, and Porlock's body followed thereafter.
They aren't things one can easily grasp. However, if you should ever happen to meet one whose happiness you wish to safeguard, even if in doing so you would stand against a sea of troubles, you might come to understand.
With those words, Akachi paused, sheathing his katana. Akachi.
I thought you were supposed to be in Kobayashi's care.
I'm so sorry. He did try to prevent me from coming here, so please don't be upset with him.
So you wouldn't even heed his attempts to stop you. Honestly, you really are hopeless. And yet, thanks to that.
Akachi began walking toward me, a resigned smile upon his face. But just as he finished speaking... Did he get shot? The sound of a gunshot rang out, shattering the quiet that had settled upon the deck, and he winced, grabbing his right shoulder. Akachi! Oh no! Was he just shot?
Well done, Akachi! Well done!
The blood moon. Dehar slowly picked himself up from the ground, clutching the back of his head. In his other hand, he held a gun pointed directly at Akachi. As soon as I saw it, I immediately leapt between the two of them.
What? Emily?
With Porlock out of the way, control of the ship and all the profits it is bound to bring belongs to me. But I'm impressed you were able to evade that shot, Akachi, especially when I had taken perfect aim at your heart.
You! You're waiting for him to lower his guard just to shoot him?
Ha ha ha! I'm going to relish paying you back for my earlier disgrace. First, I'll shoot your hands, then your feet until you can neither move nor defend. Now get out of the way, girl, unless you wish a bullet in your chest as well.
His grudge is with me, not you, Emily. Stay away.
I can't do that! If I moved, I would expose the worn-down Akachi to the muzzle of Dehar's gun. My heart raced. My legs shook. It took all that I could muster to stand steadfast, but I was determined not to yield even an inch.
Please, just do as I tell you.
I couldn't possibly abandon you. Not now. If that's what you would have of me, I refuse.
Oh, I tire of this. If you won't move, then I'll just have to shoot the both of you.
As if preparing for what might come next, I closed my eyes.
What?
I heard a single gunshot and Dehar crying out in surprise.
Pendleton, Pendleton.
As I opened my eyes again, I saw the gun fall from his hand to the deck.
How? Who else is here? Where are you?
Emily, stay still.
Tension filled his voice. As he spoke, the katana once more flashed from its sheath, cleaving an arc through the air.
Go!
Akachi's blade smote Dehar's chest, sending the man reeling backward and tumbling to the ground. And there was Akachi, sword firmly in hand, standing by my side, defending me from harm. Akachi! As he fell to his knees, I hastened to support him.
Are you hurt, Emily?
Though his body was covered in cuts from Porlock's saber, and though he had taken a bullet to the shoulder, he seemed concerned only for my welfare. All these injuries, and yet he thinks first of me.
I am sorry. Had I managed to fully dodge that first bullet, you would not have had to endure such an experience.
Akachi!
What?
Aww. Yeah, hug your boy. I felt uneasy still, scared even. But at the same time, I felt an overwhelming gladness and relief. Such conflicting feelings whirred and clashed in my mind that I could scarcely speak. Unable to restrain myself, I threw my arms around him, pulling him close.
Emily?
I'm so glad. So glad you're all right. So glad to see you again, touch you again, feel your warmth again.
Without a doubt, I am ever the beneficiary of your support. You are the one I would least have see me like this, and yet you seem the one to witness it more than any other. I was certainly not expecting you to interpose yourself between Dehar and I as you did. No woman has ever gone so far for my sake.
I apologize. I know it was a great risk.
It really was. You never fail to do the unexpected.
I was waiting. I'm like, you put your arms around her, boy, I swear. Yes. Yes. His voice was kind, and I could feel his touch soft and gentle as he caressed my head.
Your heart sits upon that fine line between bravery and recklessness. Honestly, I can scarcely take my eyes off you for a minute. Just knowing that you might be in danger was enough to send me chasing after you, going so far as to board this ship as though it were the most natural thing in the world.
I had caused him no end of trouble and considerable worry for my safety. And yet, even then, he held me close so gently. I could scarcely understand why. In the sway of such emotion, my own thoughts were slow in forming.
For reasons I myself don't fully comprehend. Even though matters have a way of not going as I wish they would when you're around, I've come to find that I don't actually mind it.
What?
I suppose it's because I've come to realize that you won't turn your back on me, even after seeing me like this.
Don't be foolish. I could never turn my back on you. Having said that, I found myself unable to say any more. But although my words had ceased, my arms encircling him had lost none of the vigor of their embrace. Thank you, Pendleton, for letting these two lovebirds have their hug. To be continued!